Joining me now is independent MP Allegra Spender. She is the member for Wentworth. Under her electorate, there is a big Jewish population. Allegra, thanks so much for your time. Was that statement there from the Prime Minister enough?
Look, I think last night some of those protests were absolutely anti-Semitic. Some of the wording that came out of that protest were absolutely appalling. And this is in front of the Opera House, which is lit up in the colours of the Israeli flag because of Australian solidarity to Israel, which has been subjected to this absolutely horrific attack, this terrorist attack, which has killed so many people, and there we still have hundreds of people as hostages, from these attacks. So I was appalled to see what happened last night in front of the Opera House, and so was my community.
Should it have happened?
Absolutely not. And, one of the things that was most distressing to my community was that they were told to stay away from the Opera House last night because of a potential risk of violence, while a demonstration was allowed to take place to Bennelong Point, to the Opera House. And so, I support, obviously, in this country, we have the right to free speech, but I do not support the hate speech, the anti-Semitism that happened last night. And the Jewish community should have been able to stand, at the foot of the Opera House and look at the colours of the Opera House lit up, because so many of them have friends and family in Israel right now, who are under attack, who are, so concerned about what's going on. And they didn't have that because of their own safety. Now, we need to have found a better way to deal with this. And I will be raising this with New South Wales Police and reaching out to other ministers in the government to say, why was this decision made?
Shouldn't it also now be from the top down? What do you want to hear from the Prime Minister? He didn't even seem to be able to admit that they were anti-Semitic rant. This wasn't an anti-Israel protest. This is what I'm trying to say. It wasn't anti-Israel, it was anti-Jewish.
Absolutely. And, it absolutely was. There were some absolutely appalling things said last night. And, again, I've had people overnight who say that they were, in office buildings where the protest was happening. There were Jewish community members in office buildings hearing people shout out, and some of the things that you just said at the start, and, absolutely deeply aggressive and violent language towards members of our community, the Jewish community, and they are, scared for themselves, and they're in office buildings in Sydney. Today I've come from a citizenship ceremony. And one of the pledges that we make as new Australian citizens, is to respect each other, to care for each other, to ensure that, religious, ethnic origin, none of these things impacts your right to be Australian and your right to have the protections and compassion of others. And I just do not believe those were the values last night. It was absolutely appalling, and I condemn it outright.
Yeah, full disclosure, this, I live in Bondi, so I'm one of your constituents, and I have noticed the anxiety of my Jewish neighbours. I have noticed anecdotally that they now have more security around their places of worship.
They do.
What's going on? It's
really concerning. I've had, again, emails from my community, in the last couple of days saying, should we be sending our kids to school? What happened, past some of the schools I drove past this morning with guards who don't normally have that presence in the street. So there is real concern from the Jewish community. And when you see what happened last night at the Opera House, well, you can absolutely understand why. So, I think it's really important that, working, that the community is, I know, working closely with the New South Wales Police and others. These are some of the relationships. I'm also constantly checking in on the community, and because, people are really, really worried. So I appeal to all Australians saying this is an incredibly difficult time for the Jewish community, who have so many connections and people in Israel, as well as Australians in Israel right now who are trying to get home, and again, members of our community. So please, this is a time for us all to show solidarity, with this absolutely, in the face of this absolutely atrocious terrorist attack.
Allegra Spender, thank you for your time. We'll speak in coming days. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Laura.